Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
On March 15th, 2007, 43-year-old Air Force Major Karl Hoerig hadn't shown up for a scheduled flight assignment. Officer Ronald Lane with the Newton Falls Police Department responded to a welfare check at Karl's home in Newton Falls, Ohio. He pulled into the driveway and parked next to a Subaru pickup truck. He went to the front door, knocked, and rang the bell. No response. He looked inside a window but couldn't see anything. He was able to get in touch with members of Karl's family, his parents, who met him there and gave him permission to enter.
As I walked in the back in the sliding door, it had the familiar odor that you have when you have a deceased body in the house. And so the parents told me to go ahead and look. So I went around, looked, checked the house. I couldn't find anything. Go back downstairs, and they were standing in the living room. And the tarp was laying there in the living room. And we looked down, and there was a hand sticking out of the tarp. And we figured that's what it was. So I pulled the tarp up, and I could see Karl was laying there face down, and there was blood coming out of his head. So at that time, I called my chief and advised him that I think that we had a homicide there, and he advised me to secure the house, and then he called for the Trumbull County Task Force.
Karl Hoerig was found at the bottom of a staircase, covered with a blanket. He had been shot multiple times, twice in the back and once in the head. There was no one else inside the residence, so officers secured the scene and started collecting evidence. Investigators would soon learn that Karl was married. He had a wife named Claudia, whom he had been married to for 2 years. Karl's car, a Subaru pickup truck, was in the driveway, but Claudia's car, a BMW, wasn't at the home. They tried calling Claudia's cell phone, but their calls went unanswered. With Karl Hoerig lying deceased at the bottom of their staircase, where was his wife? This is Jillian, and in partnership with Law and Crime, you are listening to Court Junkie, episode 148. Some items investigators found at the Hoerig home were bizarre.
When you were at the house at 64 West 9th Street, you found a loaded gun, the .357, in a board in the closet?
Yes.
A loaded gun, later determined to be the murder weapon, and a wooden 2x4 with a hole in it were found in a closet, as though it was some sort of contraption. What was that for? Investigators wondered. They learned that Karl and Claudia's marriage had been less than idyllic, according to Karl's family. And according to an earlier police report, on February 6th, a phone call from the home had been made to the police department.
As part of your investigation, you learned that on February 6th of 2007, Claudia had attempted suicide by taking some pills. Is that true?
I don't remember how that information came to us, but yes, I recall that.
Well, you pulled the police report for that incident, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. And as part of that incident, there was a 911 call made?
Yes.
And you listened to that call?
I believe we did, yes.
Okay. And that call came from Karl, correct?
Yes.
But what, if anything, Karl's call to the police about his wife wanting to die by suicide a month prior had to do with his death, they didn't know. As the days went by and investigators were still unable to get a hold of Claudia, they subpoenaed her phone records, executed a search warrant on her belongings, and went through the computers that were found inside the home.
As part of that investigation, you also learned that the night before the shooting, she had searched the web for suicide, right?
I believe that was one of the web searches, yeah.
Claudia didn't seem to have any family or friends in the area, but she did have family and friends in Brazil. In fact, Claudia's phone records showed that sometime after Karl was killed, she had called those very relatives in Brazil. But when investigators tried calling those relatives, that didn't lead to anything either.
As your investigation continued, did you make any attempt to locate or speak to Claudia Hoerig?
Yes, we did.
Were you successful in doing that?
No, we were not.
Please tell us, jury, what you did to try and contact Claudia Hoerig.
We made numerous phone calls to her cell phone at the very beginning, but then also later on we had phone calls made to her father and her sister through an interpreter, someone who was assisting the prosecutor's office. We left a number for her to call to speak with us if she chose to.
They never heard back. They were able to track Claudia's cell phone to the Pittsburgh area, where her BMW was recovered at the Pittsburgh airport.
We tracked her cell phone to where it was pinging, basically, the term that they use. It was triangulating off of towers. We determined that she was in the Pittsburgh area. Then we discovered through that she had used Karl's employee privilege to fly from Pittsburgh to New York, and then ultimately flew from New York to São Paulo.
And São Paulo is in Brazil?
Is in Brazil, yes.
They were now certain that Claudia wasn't a victim of whatever had happened to Karl that night, but that she was the number one suspect. It was indeed a worst-case scenario for investigators. Claudia had emptied her bank account, boarded a plane, and left the country, leaving their hands tied and the investigation stalled. Stalled for years, in fact, more than 11 years. Until finally...
You want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps down to where his body was, and you put the gun 12 to 24 inches from his head and pulled the trigger, correct? Probably.
Investigators believed that Claudia had at least a 3-day head start. Even though Karl was found on March 15th, the timing of his death was closer to March 12th. They issued a warrant for her arrest for the murder of her husband. But the effort to get Claudia back to the United States to face trial for murder wasn't easy, to say the least. Years went by, but Brazilian authorities, although they knew exactly where Claudia was, refused any and every request by the United States to extradite her. Claudia was one of their own. She had been born in Brazil, and they had never before extradited any of their citizens. This went back to 1961, where the United States and Brazil had signed a treaty stating that neither one is required to grant the extradition of one of its own nationals. Although in the years since, most similar treaties the United States had with other countries had been renegotiated, the treaty with Brazil, however, remained the same. And Brazil's own constitution forbids the extradition of Brazilian nationals. According to a special about this case that aired on 48 Hours, while the United States was trying to get the Brazilian government to extradite her, Claudia had built a new life for herself since returning to her homeland. She had started her own accounting business, had her own home, and had even remarried. Brazilian authorities offered to try Claudia in a Brazilian court and suggested that maybe the U.S. could try to extradite her from another country if she ever traveled outside Brazil. But authorities in the U.S. had another idea. Claudia had become a citizen of the United States while she lived there and while she was married to Karl Hoerig. According to Brazilian law, that would mean she lost her Brazilian nationality when she naturalized in the U.S., making her eligible to be extradited. In July 2013, the Brazilian government revoked Claudia's citizenship. And finally, in January 2018, she was extradited back to Ohio. In a lengthy interview with police, Claudia told detectives that she was hesitant to tell them why she had done what she did. She said she didn't want to bash Karl and was concerned about his family members. She said she knows she will be convicted and was prepared for that to happen. At Claudia's trial, which started a year later in January 2019, prosecutors told the jury that the murder was premeditated, that Claudia was a cold-blooded killer who had escaped punishment for over a decade. In his opening statements, Trumbull County prosecutor Dennis Watkins told the jury that Karl Hoerig was a 43-year-old veteran who spent most of his life serving in the United States Air Force. He was also a pilot for Southwest Airlines. He said Karl and Claudia met online. He had been divorced for a few years and had 2 older children. They were married for about 2 years. A rocky marriage, Watkins said, when Karl was killed. The marriage didn't work out, he told the court. We will show that Major Hoerig was leaving her.
This woman shot him 3 times. Twice in the back and once in the head. We're going to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she ambushed him. That the version of the crime is supported by the physical evidence, and it will stand the test of time forever, in our opinion, because of all the circumstances you will hear.
He said while Karl was preparing to leave her that weekend, she was preparing to kill him that weekend.
She shot him from the top of the stairs as he was putting his shoes on. And she also went down and shot him at the bottom of the stairs.
He said the last shot was close, right to Karl's head.
One who shot him, disabled him, incapacitated him, bring him down like that. And she pursued him from all our evidence, from upstairs, and went down and finished him off. It's important in proving prior calculation and design that you consider the preparation, buying the guns, where is the man located, the victim, what's the distance between the two, and how many shots are fired. And if you pursue a helpless human being and go down the steps, you've got to straddle him and go on the other side, bang, bang. That's prior calculation and design.
Objection.
You're arguing, Mr. Watkins, back to opening statement.
Thank you. In our opinion, that is prior calculation.
Objection.
He told the jury that she shot Karl 3 times and then left the United States. We will prove that she is guilty of murder. But Claudia's defense team urged the jury to pay attention to the why. Why had Claudia shot and killed her husband? Attorney John Cornley told the jury that Claudia and Karl's marriage was riddled with problems, including suicide attempts, miscarriages, and abuse. He said Claudia tried multiple attempts to end her own life, including coming up with a contraption to do so and purchasing a gun. Her intent was never to kill Karl. But she did, he conceded to the jury, she shot him in a moment of weakness. Afterwards, she fled the country, which he said shows that it wasn't premeditated. She left all of her personal belongings at the house, including her clothing and even the gun that she had used. After being extradited, she voluntarily spoke with police, and what she says happened, he said, matches the evidence.
As Ms. Hoerig told you herself, as she will say herself on the thing, Karl Hoerig is dead because she shot him. And she shot him because at her moment of weakness, 30 days after she's attempted suicide, when she wants to have a conversation with him, he tells her, go ahead, kill yourself. Just do it in the basement so you don't get my stuff messy. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the evidence you're hearing. That's why the lie is so important in this case. You won't hear any evidence of premeditation, planning, or design.
He told the jury they would not hear any evidence of premeditation or planning. The state's first witness in the case was a man who testified that in 2007 he was the owner of multiple rental properties. On February 23, 2007, he said Karl gave him $100 to place a hold on one of them so he could start renting it. Karl told him he had to fly to Texas but would be back. This was just weeks before his death. And this jived with what another witness testified to, a friend of Karl's, Major Daniel Henry. Major Henry recalled for the jury that about a week or two prior to Karl's death, he went over to Karl's house. Karl told him that he had rented another house down the street. It was a small A-frame house, a lot smaller than the one he shared with Claudia. Karl told his friend that he was going to be moving into it. Brian Martin testified that he worked at Slug Masters, a gun shop in Newton Falls, where Claudia and Karl lived in 2007. He said on March 10th, 2 days before Karl was killed, Claudia came in and said she wanted to purchase a gun for protection. She initially wanted a .44 Magnum, but since she was a beginner and wanted it for defense, he pointed her to a .357 instead, since it had less of a kickback.
She came in carrying a book, the book that most guys are using for concealed carry classes, and she had things marked in her book. She had several questions. I don't remember all the questions specifically, but I tried to explain and answer her questions.
Do you recall what some of the questions were? I mean, you may not remember every one, but do you remember in general or what they were about?
I know she asked about semi-automatic versus revolvers, and she had some questions about ammunition.
She purchased the .357 with laser sight and hollow point ammunition. According to testimony from Richard Slider, shortly after her visit to Slugmasters, around 4 p.m., Claudia came in to use the gun range. He said she had her own firearm, a .357. He said she kept talking to him and his wife, commenting that he was so helpful to his wife and how nice that was. He noted that it was unusual. Trumbull County Sheriff's Detective Peter Pizzullo testified about the investigation. He said when he went to the Hoerig house, he used a metal rod to determine the trajectory of the bullets. He said in his estimation, the shooter would have been shooting from the top of the stairs. On cross, he said after viewing the home, he believed that Claudia had left in a hurry. He was also asked about the internet searches they found.
Did you find any internet searches that said how to get away with murder?
No.
How to escape?
No.
How to plan a murder?
No.
How to dispose of a body?
No.
Krista Bridges was a friend of Karl's who testified that in August 2006, she attended a bachelorette party with Claudia, and that Claudia told her something that stood out to her.
When you had a discussion with Claudia Hoerig and there was a story being told about Karl.
So Michelle and Amy and the girls were all sitting there. We were talking about Karl in the cockpit. It was a funny story during deployment. And Claudia was sitting to my right. And all of a sudden during the story, she leaned over to me and said, if he ever leaves me, I'd kill him. All right.
And did that strike you how did that strike you at that time?
It threw me off guard a little bit. We weren't really talking anything like that. It was just a funny story. And so I kind of laughed it off and she scoffed, but she wasn't really laughing. And so I thought it was weird, but people say that all the time.
Dr. Joseph Philo is a forensic pathologist and chief deputy medical examiner. The coroner who conducted the autopsy in the case had since passed away, so Dr. Philo would testify about Karl's injuries. He described Karl's 3 gunshot wounds. The first entered his right upper back and went towards his front and upwards into his right shoulder. The angle where it enters was very steep. The second shot went through his ribs on the right side, downwards and to the left, and ended near his left nipple. It went through his right lung, hit major blood vessels, as well as his aorta. The third gunshot wound was to his head. Dr. Philo testified that the second and third shots occurred downstairs.
You looked at the autopsy report, and do you have an opinion from looking at the body, the injuries on the body, whether or not Karl Hoerig fell 10 to 7 steps?
My opinion is that he did not fall down the steps, and that is because he does not have any blunt trauma from a fall. So whenever a body falls downstairs, those are a series of blunt impacts. Those are going to leave bruises or scrapes, sometimes tears, which are lacerations, maybe broken bones. Those are all things that are not present in the autopsy.
On January 22, 2019, the defense called its first and only witness, a now 54-year-old Claudia Hoerig. As she walked up to the stand and was sworn in under oath, Claudia looked noticeably different than she did in her wanted posters 11 years prior. Her hair was now long and gray, and she looked nervous as she asked someone for water. Claudia testified about her relationship with Karl. At times, she spoke softly, and the audio isn't very clear, but I'll add audio clips wherever I can. She told the jury that she was born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and came to the U.S. in the late 1980s when she was 24. She was married to her first husband for about 10 years, but they divorced in 1998. She testified that she first started talking to Karl online, on Match.com, in April 2005. She was living in Queens, New York, at a condo she had just purchased. She was working as an accountant at a private communications company. She said at first she had concerns about talking to Karl. She thought it was weird that a man from Ohio was contacting her in New York City. She said she had made it so the settings on Match.com were set for men within 10 miles only. She recalled asking him why he was contacting her if he lived so far away, and she said he gave her a story that made no sense. She rolled her eyes as she spoke. He told her he was divorced, single, with no children living with him. He said he was free to move to any place in the U.S. and that he was thinking of moving to New York. They exchanged a few messages over the next week, and he told her he had flying privileges and could fly out to see her. He showed up on a Friday, just as he said. He spent the weekend with her. They went out in New York City and had a good time. On that Friday, she said he proposed to her, and they agreed to get married. They took turns flying out to see each other. She said there were certain things about their relationship she didn't like. She always paid for everything, and he would always instruct her on what to wear when they would go out with his friends. That usually entailed something sexy that made her feel embarrassed. But she did it anyway, she said, to make him happy. They got married in June 2005. It was only the 5th time they had met in person. She said she knew immediately after that she had made a mistake. She said they both did, but they managed to work through it. She eventually moved to Ohio to be with him. But soon after she moved, he told her he had decided to make a career change. He would work with the Air Force and also join Southwest Airlines part-time. She said he left for training for 3 or 4 months, leaving her home with his 16-year-old son. He left them no money, and so she had to start using the money in her savings account to feed herself and his son. She said her and Karl's marriage was not good. She said he had a way of making her pay for things, even though they never discussed it. And he would give her a menu with recipes, and she would have to go out and buy everything in order to cook it. Right after they got married in July 2005, she got pregnant. She was over 40 and had never gotten pregnant before, so she was surprised. She told the court that Karl didn't react well to her pregnancy. She said he accused her of setting him up and said he didn't want anything to happen to her body. He didn't want her to have stretch marks like his first wife had. He wanted her to have an abortion and looked for an abortion clinic, but she wanted to have the baby. Once I had that thing inside of me, I wanted it, she said. When Karl realized that she wasn't going to change her mind, she said he started torturing her psychologically and physically. He would find ways to stress her out, like making her run miles and then leaving her in the middle of the woods when it was dark out. He would disappear and she would freak out and start running fast, which wasn't good for early pregnancy. He would make her work out with weights like he was a personal trainer. All of it made her have a miscarriage, she said. A few months later, in February 2006, she got pregnant again. Again, it was a surprise. And again, Karl accused her of setting him up and told her he wanted her to have an abortion. She refused. She said he continued using his silent tactics on her, including not letting her sleep. He knew what he was doing, she said.
He knew exactly what he was doing. He would do mental torture, not let me sleep, even though he knew I had to wake up early because I was already working with my first job. So I was exhausted.
She had another miscarriage. She told the jury that Karl would be gone every few days for work. When he was in town, she said she was obligated to watch TV with him. He would lay down on the couch and she had to sit by his feet and not move, like a statue. If she changed position, he would give her a dirty look, an evil look, she said. But she was allowed to get up and get him a drink or food. He would make them stay up until about 3 or 3:30 a.m., when she had to get up at 5 a.m. for work. She told the jury that she and Karl had an active sex life, but that there were issues. He was not able to perform without Viagra, or something weird like her pretending to be dead, she said. He would not get an erection with normal sex. She said Karl would make her do bondage, too. He had never hinted to her that he had any sexual issues or fetishes before they got married. One time, she said he told her he wanted to hire a maid from Brazil, but not just to be a maid, but to be like a second wife. He told her it would spice up their sex life. She said no. She told the jury that in late 2006 or early 2007, she attempted suicide for the first time. She had picked up one of Karl's guns. He had many in their home, but she couldn't go through with it. She was afraid of just wounding herself and not dying. On February 7th, 2007, she took all the sleeping medications she had, which came out to be almost 30 pills. She said she told Karl she had taken the pills and that she didn't want to die in the house because she didn't want him to be responsible for her death. She told him she would just get into her car and drive away and die somewhere else. She said she hid his car keys and went into her car, but lost consciousness within 10 minutes. She ended up in a car accident and drove her car into a ditch. She said Karl, along with the nurses and doctors, ended up admitting her into a mental hospital for a few weeks. She begged Karl not to do it because she knew she would lose her job. She was prescribed Zoloft and another medication. Sure enough, when she went back to work, she said she was fired because she had missed an audit. She told the jury that during this time, Karl wasn't doing well either. She went to his family about it, and she said his brother told her to not come to them with their marital problems. That's what led to her second suicide attempt, she said. Towards the end of February, she and Karl had separated, and she went back on Match.com and met someone else. She broke it off with the new guy a few weeks later. She found out she was pregnant with Karl's baby again, and she freaked out. She said she thought she had done so much damage to her marriage by dating someone else, she figured she wouldn't be able to fix it. Her plan then was to try and convince Karl to try one more time, even though he had started dating other people too. If Karl said no, she would kill herself. She had no job or any means of supporting the child. She couldn't have an abortion. Her only way out was to kill herself. On March 10th, she said Karl went out of town for work. She told the jury that she started to put her suicide plan into place. She went to her safety deposit box and sent money to her dad in Brazil. After that, she went to a gun store and bought a revolver that held 5 bullets. She then went to the shooting range that Karl used to take her to. She said she went there to practice with the gun. While there, she had them put on a laser sight. She told the court that she had wanted to practice because she wanted to understand how a gun recoils. She said she didn't want to lose her face and then not die. She wanted to feel that gun in her hand to make sure it was the right gun, that her plan was going to work. She then went and purchased ammunition. She said that on March 10th and 11th, she worked on building a suicide device. She said the gun could recoil and do things you don't expect it to do. So she thought that if she built a wooden block with a seat and put a hole in the wood, she could just stick the gun through there and pull the trigger.
So you took a block of wood and cut or drilled out a hole for the gun to fit in, correct?
Yes.
And then you went and measured and mounted the wood to the door frame of the closet in what had been Karl's daughter's room?
Yes, he could never went in that room.
And you had a little stool that you were going to sit on?
Yeah, a little beige stool.
Okay. And the plan was you would just reach around and pull the trigger?
Yeah, the wood would be here right, touching my face. And I would just put my hand over and pull the trigger. There would be no recoil.
Because it was stuck in the wood mounted to the...
Right, the gun would not move. It was secure in place.
And so you built that and installed that on March 11th?
It's Sunday, yes.
That evening, she got on her computer and searched suicide by gun and researched people who had killed themselves with guns. She said she didn't want to live. On the morning of March 12th, between 9 and 10 a.m., Karl came home. She said she met him by the door and gave him a letter to read, which he did. They went upstairs in the bedroom and she showed him the pregnancy test. She hadn't been planning on telling him that day, but she said her emotions got the best of her. In response, Karl told her he didn't care, and she said he gave her a bunch of excuses for why he didn't want the baby. He said he had never wanted a baby in his life and never wanted to be a father, but that his first wife trapped him into marriage by getting pregnant. He now had 2 kids. He said sooner or later she would ask him for money. He then told her he planned on adopting his grandchild from his 18-year-old daughter so she could go to school. She said that was something he had never told her before, and that it was such a betrayal, she said. He was choosing between another baby and their baby. She offered to raise the baby by herself, but she said he kept giving her excuses. Then, she said, he hit her. He grabbed her by the throat and threw her down onto the bed, and they started to struggle. Eventually, she said he came to his senses and stopped. He then asked her to leave so he could shower. Then they would continue the conversation, he said. She left the room and he locked the door. She said she contemplated taking sleeping pills again, but she didn't have any more. So she found a bottle of moonshine in their kitchen and started drinking. She said she wanted Karl to realize that she was desperate. And so when she heard him coming out of his room, she pulled out the gun that was in her purse and held it up to her head. She was right outside the bedroom door.
And so he opens the door from the bedroom and you're standing there with the gun to your head?
Yes.
What happens next?
When he opened the door, he saw that he didn't have much of a reaction. He just stared at me for a while, 5-10 seconds. He didn't do a thing. He kept staring at me, I kept staring at him, and I was crying. I was crying, and he didn't have any emotions to his face, nothing. I couldn't read him. No emotion.
She said all of a sudden he grabbed her wrist and throat and pushed her. She fell back into a wall. While she was on the ground, they continued talking for a while, she on the floor and he standing.
Okay, so he grabbed you by the throat and pushed you down, and then you guys started talking?
We still were talking.
What were you talking about?
I think I was asking him to continue that conversation, and he didn't want to continue that conversation. And he ended that my attempt of talking to him and convincing him to talk more with me. He cut me short, and then he just said that he didn't care. He thought it was a good idea.
Well, let's stop there. When you said you two were talking, were you just talking to him, or was he talking back to him?
I was doing the talking, and he was doing the, shaking his head like we're done talking.
She said she told him she was going to shoot herself, and he responded that it wasn't a good idea. Then, she said, he asked why didn't she wait for him to leave the house and then go to the basement and shoot herself there so she wouldn't get blood on his paintings.
Karl collected paintings.
He was a painting collector, yes.
Okay. And so what he was telling you was, go ahead, kill yourself.
I object to this line of questioning.
So he had paintings that he didn't, that's what he was talking about, was his paintings?
Yeah, he didn't want me to kill myself in right there. He wanted me to go to the basement. He didn't want me to kill myself either on the first floor or the second floor. He told me to go to the basement and wait for him to leave the house. He said that.
And how'd that make you feel?
I felt very angry.
She said she thought to herself that she was going to do it. She was going to kill herself. But, she said, if she was going to die and her baby was going to die, then all 3 of them would die right now.
So I just, when I started going down the steps, I just got up real fast. I positioned myself behind him and I shot the first time, and he died instantly. And he just fell, his body just fell like this. And as he was going down, I think his right foot was still up in the air. That's when it buckled and he lost his right shoe. And his body just went boom.
She said there that he was on the middle of the stairs. She was at the top. She shot him as he was walking down the steps. It was a fatal shot, she said, because he never moved or made a sound after. As she walked down the steps and got to the bottom, she then fired 2 more times. She checked his breathing. Nothing. She then went to her device that she had built and sat down. She pulled the trigger on her gun, but nothing happened. She fired again, and nothing happened.
What the heck? What happened here? It was so difficult. So I said, you know what? Maybe the bullets are bad or something happened to this guy. I don't know. I ran to the basement to put the 5 of the bullets in the gun. And at that point, I stopped and I realized, saw his body, I realized what I had done. And I said, let me see if he's still alive. I'm going to call 911. And I checked for his breathing and I checked his pulse. He was dead.
She said she ran back and tried to shoot herself again for a 3rd time, but again the gun wouldn't fire. She called her family in Brazil and they talked her out of killing herself. Her father gave her directions. She felt like a little girl again, allowing herself to be directed. She went to the computer to look up flights. She took her comforter and put it over Karl's body. She thought if someone came to the window, they would see his body and she wouldn't have enough time to leave the country. When asked if she packed anything, she said, not a single thing. She then left the house for the last time and went to the bank. She got her passport, school records, and $3,100 she had in her checking account. She left $300 in there so it wouldn't attract attention. She said on her way to the airport, she called Southwest Airlines and told them she was Karl Hoerig's wife. She was able to book a flight for free to LaGuardia. From there, she purchased a ticket to Brazil in cash. She landed in São Paulo, Brazil, and then bought a ticket to Rio de Janeiro, where she was reunited with her father. She stayed with family for a few days, but she said she was still contemplating suicide. She eventually went on to marry her 3rd husband, a very simple man, she said.
On March 12th, 2007, did you plan to kill Karl Hoerig?
Never for a second.
Okay. If he'd not said the words he said to you while you were on the landing, would you have killed him?
Oh, no, he would be alive now. I would have been dead.
Okay.
She said what he said to her that night is something you should never say to anybody, especially to the woman who's carrying your child. So that was it. That was Claudia's story of how everything came to be that fateful night when Karl was killed. Next up, the prosecutor's turn to question her. Questioning from the prosecution got off to a contentious start.
You lived your life with your husband for almost 11 years in Brazil, correct?
No.
Close to 11 years.
I didn't live my life.
You didn't live your life?
No.
You didn't have a marriage? You didn't have
No. I had a nightmare.
Okay. You got to celebrate holidays, Christmases and birthdays?
Never.
You didn't do any of that?
No.
Okay.
I work 365 days a year.
Okay. And you got to tell this story to this jury by getting on that witness stand yesterday, correct?
Yes.
All right. And we got over 3 hours of your story yesterday, correct?
I wasn't watching the clock.
All right. And the vast majority of your testimony yesterday was just basically telling us how bad Karl Hoerig was, correct?
Not exactly. I was telling things good and bad, and I was telling the whole story. Right. There were good and bad sides.
These are only yes or no questions. I'm not trying to trick you. Because of actions you took on March 12th, 2007, you would agree that Karl Hoerig cannot come in this courtroom and tell his version of events, correct?
Neither can my 3 children that he killed.
I'm asking you whether Karl Hoerig, please try and listen to the question. can Karl Hoerig come in and tell his side of the story? It's an easy question, yes or no?
Yes, he can.
He can?
Yes.
Where's he going to come from?
If you tell the truth to this court, he can, because I have a recording of every day of my life for 2 years, and this court knows, and Dennis Watkins knows, and you know that my whole life was recorded with voice recording, and it's not in here, was not brought in as evidence. Why are you lying to this court, to this juror, and to Brazil, and to me, to my face? Could you bring my computer here and play the whole tape for these people to hear the whole truth?
You have 2 lawyers that are appointed for you to do
I don't know what they did. I know what you did.
All right. And let's go this route. You'd agree that Karl Hoerig can't come in here and sit on that witness stand and tell his side of the story, correct?
His voice can.
He can answer questions?
No.
Yeah, thank you.
Assistant Prosecutor Chris Becker recalled her testimony where she said that before she was going to kill herself after murdering Karl, she decided to call her dad.
You didn't extend, you said you didn't want them to worry about how you died, correct?
No, I didn't say that.
You said you didn't want them to find out in the newspaper.
Correct.
All right. You didn't extend that same courtesy, though, to Karl Hoerig, did you?
Objection. Rule.
You didn't allow Karl Hoerig to call his parents before you shot him.
Please, go on with your question.
Do you have an answer to that question?
This is an absurd question.
Do you have an answer to that question?
Can you repeat? Because
did you give Karl Hoerig the courtesy to call his parents before you shot him 3 times?
No.
Becker then asked her about how she said Karl told her he didn't want the baby.
And you didn't want the baby either, did you?
Oh, I did.
You did?
Yeah.
So after he told you that you didn't want a baby and took this hour shower, you wanted a baby so bad that you drank a fifth or so or half of that rum bottle. Right?
Yeah.
Well, does that sound like something that's good for a pregnant woman?
You don't think...
Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, it's not good for a pregnant woman.
He asked her about what she said Karl said to her that night before she shot him. How he allegedly told her to go kill herself downstairs so she wouldn't get blood on his paintings.
And again, Karl Hoerig cannot admit that, deny that, or explain that because of what you did to him, correct?
Yes.
All right. You could have left the house, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a condo in New York, right?
I think you missed the point.
Do you have a condo in New York that you can go to? Yes, okay. Did you know at this point that Karl's loaded up his car and he's ready to move out?
No.
No, you didn't know that. But he's leaving the house.
I'm going to object, Your Honor.
I don't know. Well, we're not.
It's a statement. I don't know. We have enough foundation for that.
Okay. Carl's walking away from you. He's done talking.
He's done talking.
All right. And you shot Karl Hoerig a few days after you transferred $9,900 to Brazil, correct?
Yes.
You shot Karl Hoerig with the same gun that you bought 2 days earlier at Slugmasters, correct?
Yes.
You shot Karl Hoerig with the same gun that you paid $227.52 for a light laser sight 2 days before, correct?
Yes.
You shot Karl Hoerig with the same gun that you had Brian Martin put that laser sight on when you bought it, correct?
Yes.
You shot Karl Hoerig with the same gun that you practiced with for about an hour 2 days earlier, correct?
Yes.
You shot Karl Hoerig 2 days after now what we hear is the first time just a salesman trying to get you to buy a bigger gun. You had no intent of buying that one, though, right?
No.
Okay. You shot and killed Karl Hoerig by putting not 1, not 2, but 3 shots into his body, correct?
Yes.
All right. And you executed him by walking down those 10 steps.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
All right. You shot him. And despite the fact that you said earlier you're not a doctor or a forensic pathologist, you claim the first shot killed him, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yet that house has 10 steps from the second floor to where his body was. Is that correct?
I believe your words.
All right. You walked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps down to where his body was, and you put the gun 12 to 24 inches from his head and pulled the trigger, correct?
Probably.
Becker then questioned why, if she believed he was dead after that first shot, she then walked down the steps and shot him again.
After you walked down those 10 steps, after you bought that gun 2 days earlier, practiced with it, had a laser sight put on it, after you walked 10 steps down that to where his body was, that you claim was dead, you put a gun 12 to 24 inches from him, and then when you came back in January of last year, you told this detective you know you're going to be convicted. Is that correct?
Yeah, because this is not a fair court. Yes.
Yes. And you told
there are no Brazilians here. You see no Brazilians here, so of course I'm going to be...
Am I asking you about Brazilians?
I'm sorry?
Did I ask you about any Brazilians?
No.
Slow down.
Okay.
Ask a question, answer a question.
And you told this detective on the part of the recorded conversation that we played the other day in court that you expect to do 18 to 30 years in prison.
Never said that.
That's not what she stated.
It's up to the jury to determine what was stated in those prior.
And you stated in that recorded conversation that you wanted to do your time in a Brazilian prison to be close to your husband, correct?
No, that's not what I said. I said if I got convicted, if I got...
Let your attorney ask the question.
With that, Becker was done. In his closing arguments, Becker pointed out that according to Dr. Filo's testimony, Claudia shot Karl, then walked down 10 steps, put the gun 12 to 24 inches from his head, and pulled the trigger.
Now, how much more purposeful can you get?
Furthermore, he said Claudia has admitted to killing Karl, so the jury doesn't have to worry about deciding that.
You will not hear in this case any defense of, it was an accident, the gun went off accidentally. Self-defense. She didn't say Karl Hoerig came there with a knife or he had a gun. There's no claim that she's not guilty by reason of insanity. No psychiatrist or psychologist or forensic person said she's crazy. So you don't have to worry about that.
He said she purposely killed him, which has been proven beyond any reasonable doubt.
So that gets us to why are we here? What's the one thing we haven't talked about? Prior calculation and design.
He told the jury they have a few choices. First, they need to decide if Claudia committed aggravated murder, which means it was with prior calculation and design. Next, the lesser included offense is murder, which he said means they did not prove prior calculation and design. He said the inferior offense is voluntary manslaughter. To believe that, he said you'd have to find she didn't plan to kill him, that it wasn't purposeful.
And you have to find that, you really have to just believe her, that Karl Hoerig saying, don't get my paintings bloody as he was leaving her, that's enough to make a reasonable person shoot and kill her. That's what you have to believe to get to that inferior defense. So you have to forget about the pre-planning and the planning. You have to forget about the purposeful. And you have to find that when he says, well, go ahead and kill yourself, just don't get my paintings bloody, and walk away, and she shoots at him 5 times, hitting him through twice, and putting him on his head, that was reasonable. Objection to the rule.
He said if they chose voluntary manslaughter, it would mean that Karl did something to make her kill him. He argued that aggravated murder was what they had shown.
She's not guilty of an inferior offense of manslaughter. Saying don't kill yourself and get blood on my pictures is no reason to kill anybody. She did murder him. She purposely did it, but she did it with prior calculation and design. This case is overflowing with prior calculation and design.
But in his closing arguments, Claudia's attorney, John Cornley, said the state did not prove that Claudia had acted with prior calculation and design. He said there's no evidence that Karl was putting his shoes on when Claudia shot him, that it's just a theory the prosecution put forth. He said Claudia told detectives that she didn't want to say bad things about Karl because she wanted to protect his family. It was only after she was pressured and poked and prodded by police that she did so. He told the jury that there's no motive. Sure, she did things beforehand, like purchase a gun and transfer money. But if her plan was to kill Karl, he asked, why didn't she book any flights beforehand?
Why isn't she doing a whole lot of things? Why isn't she packing all this stuff up and the minute Karl opens the door, shooting him in the head? This is a husband and wife. There's a lot of ways to plan and kill somebody. Ladies and gentlemen, the state has to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that she had prior calculations designed, and they can't. They can't even come up with a version of the events of the shooting that shows anything different than what she said.
He said what happened that night is exactly what Claudia said happened. She lost her temper after the horrible statements he made, and she shot him.
And to make the state prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt each and every element, most specifically that she had prior calculation design. I believe when you go back and you look at the evidence, you'll find that not only did they not prove prior calculation and design beyond a reasonable doubt, they didn't prove it at all.
The jury deliberated and found Claudia guilty of aggravated murder. Claudia shook her head no. At her sentencing, Karl's younger brother spoke to the court, calling the loss of his brother unimaginable and beyond words. He said it was difficult for him to comprehend that Claudia fled to Brazil and started a new life, starting a business and getting remarried.
She lived free and in the open for over 9 years while my family and I struggled to have her detained. This nightmare was followed by almost 2 years of her filing numerous appeals to stay in Brazil. Her selfish and deceptive actions of playing games with her U.S. citizenship to maintain her freedom in Brazil reveals her true character.
Karl's daughter then spoke, saying her dad had taught her a lot of things, that nothing was too hard to overcome, even if it seems impossible. He taught her to be positive, even when she really didn't feel like it. He taught her to always try and go for it. She called Claudia's testimony inaccurate and unbearable, calling it unfair to her family and to herself. She said she wants to tell the whole world how ridiculous everything Claudia said was. She said her dad wouldn't be happy with her if she did that, though, that he was better than that. She said her dad was the greatest, most wonderful, best ever should have won a trophy dad. She said she never told him that, and it's unfair that he isn't in her family's life anymore. Claudia Hoerig was sentenced to life in prison. She will be eligible for parole after 28 years. And that's all for this episode. As always, I'd love to know what you think about this case. Let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram @CourtJunkie, by tweeting me @CourtJunkiePod, or by emailing me at podcast@courtjunkie.com. And lastly, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I've been releasing some behind-the-scenes videos along with videos of my sidebar episodes, which is a monthly podcast I'm recording with a friend of mine where we discuss Court Junkie cases as well as other true crime news. So be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/courtjunkie. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.